Hello and welcome to the first episode of Let's Chat RPGs. I'm your host, Dr. RPG Jeff Harvey, and we're just going to get right into it today because you've seen the preview episode, hopefully. And joining me today is from Continuing Conversations and a freelance writer for Star Trek Adventures and the lead writer on the new Star Trek Adventures solo RPG, Michael Dismuke. Michael, how are you?
Fantastic, Jeff. Always good to see you. I know you're the foundation of our podcast, so it's always nice to share a screen with you.
I'm nervous. It's the first time I've hosted a podcast in over a year and a half, I think. So, and joining as well is the always ineffable. I don't know. I can't do Michael's thing justice, but Jim Johnson.
Oh, you did just fine. Hey, everybody. Thanks for having me here, Jeff. I always appreciate it. Always appreciate all the hard work you do behind the scenes, too, for Continuing Conversations. Thank you for that. But hey, everybody, I'm Jim Johnson. I'm the project manager and line editor for the Star Trek Adventures RPG and the Captain's Log solo RPG, both published by Modiphious Entertainment.
Excellent. And you guys are also the co-hosts and hosts of the Continuing Conversations podcast, which is one of the reasons we're here today. I very much enjoy that show. It's got a place in my heart as I am the producer, and it was at least partially started as STA Engage, which was a show that I did for 17 or 18 episodes.
Yeah.
And it has been doing very well. And I wanted there to be a nice, easy transition for people who watch that show to be able to get into this show as well. So you guys, tell me a little bit about how it's been for you guys on the podcast. Like it's a new thing for both of you, I assume. I know, Jim, you've got your own YouTube channel, but what do you guys, how has it been to be doing podcasting for role-playing games for you guys?
And soon going on our 100th episode too. So,
yes.
So it's I think for both me and Jim, it's been an unexpected surprise. When we first started it, we didn't think we'd have that much to talk about, but it was named Continuing Conversations. So ironically, we did. So for me, again, I know I'm not a technical kind of person. Put me in front of a mic, fine, I'll do what I got to do. So it's been an unexpected surprise. And the best thing, of course, is the fan reaction and people actually saying that they're using the videos to learn and play the game. And that to me makes me super happy. So it's been fun. And of course, Jim knows the people he's been able to wrangle on the show or people who've been willing to come on the show has been miraculous for Trek fans, for like us, a lot of the background people. So I'm feeling really good about it. And I'm confident we might make 200 episodes eventually.
Wow, you're very optimistic there, but I'll be with you on the whole stretch of the way if we can make it. We'll see what happens. But yeah, for me, I've never done a podcast before, right? So I had no idea what to expect when we went on the first couple shows and just chatted about what was it, Captain? No, it wasn't Captain's Log. It must have been like the Player's Guide. Game Master Guide or Player's Guide, one of those two. And we just kept going and we just kept going. And then all of a sudden we were like inviting people onto the show and talking about it. And it just grew. Actually, Michael, I think in some ways it grew from the interviews you were doing on Continuing Mission, right? Where you were interviewing all the different writers and artists and editors and stuff, and then just kind of expanded from there. And fortunately, we have a pretty deep bench of people who worked on STA, in terms of writers and freelancers and stuff, but also we were really intentional about inviting the fans onto the show too, because of course the fans, there's a huge, the game is only successful because of the fans and the fact that so many people are taking to YouTube or Twitch or whatever to share what they're doing. Right. And I know, Michael, you've talked about this before, where Star Trek has such a huge fan connection. Just historically, even from the 60s all the way up to now, the fans have always been a key component of Star Trek. And we knew that we wanted to get the fans involved early and often. So it's great to have super fans come on the show, talk about their experiences, talk about the games that they're running. Like BC Holmes talking about the character generator that she maintains because of the passion and the love for the franchise and for the game. So it's just doing the podcast has been really, really super rewarding in ways that I wasn't really expecting. And I think because it's so much fun to share all this stuff with fans, that's kind of why I started kicking my YouTube channel up to speed, because like I had so much content in my head that I wanted to get out, and I knew it was more content than even we could get to on a weekly basis with Continuing Conversations. I was like, well, shoot, how do I get even more content out? It's like, well, I do have my kind of week YouTube channel that I've been doing mostly writing stuff on, and I could tap into that too. So now I got a couple of different things going on. We got this going on, and it's just and it's all for the fans, right? It's all for the love of the game and all for the love of RPGs and all that stuff. So it's been fun.
Yeah, and the wealth of content too. Every day, generally, there's a post on continuing mission too. If I'm not generating it, Colin Wilson is. Sometimes Jeff, you've put up stuff there. You've offered stuff there. Tony Pye, and then the fans keep pumping out content. So every day, I mean, we hit like 365 posts a year on continuing mission, just to give you an idea how much content and how much love there is for the game. So we can't keep up with one podcast, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's been amazing to see the Star Trek Adventures product take off the way it has. I mean, Star Trek, obviously it's a well-known IP, but I've played all the versions of the game back to FASA and through Decipher and Last Unicorn Games, which was my personal favorite up until this version came out. And this version, I think, is by far, I think it's probably by far the best iteration of the game. And I think that's largely in part to the passion that people like you, Jim, have. Obviously you guys both work with the Star Trek Adventures RPG a lot. Michael, I think you've only ever had one other game. You played, Marvel Superheroes, right?
All the iterations of the Marvel games I played. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. My favorite version of that was the
Unlimited,
Saga
Champions,
version.
5 parsecs from home. I've dabbled, but Marvel, yes, fully committed, but Star Trek Adventures is definitely the number one on my list. Yeah.
Right. So having both worked with the product as far as on a production side, what would you say? It doesn't be anything you worked on necessarily, but what's your favorite Star Trek Adventures product that's come out so far? Like me personally, I think the Game Master's Guide is hands down the best single book that's come out. I have to admit that I haven't actually read the Star Trek Adventures solo play all the way through yet, so I haven't been able to fall in love with that yet, but I've seen people playing it and it looks amazing and I'm looking forward to getting a chance to. But what is your favorite product from the Star Trek Adventures line so far?
Oh man, that is such a hard question, and I don't want to go down the road of saying like, oh, they're all my children, I can't pick my favorite children, because that's BS, and I don't want to waste my time with that. But I don't know, because it's so hard, because like I was involved in the sausage making on pretty much every single one of them, right? And so like I've got the end result, but I've got all the inside stories about how the thing came to life, right? I think I might be too close to it right now to really give you a fair answer, but I think I think if I had to give you like my top 2 just off the top of my head right now, it'd be the tricorder set, because there's just so much cool stuff in it, and we managed to pack so much amazing things into there. Not just the rules digest and the campaign, the little campaign booklet that I wrote, but the dice, right? The green Kirk dice are just so vivid in color. It's just so fun to see so many of them. And there you go, Michael's got them on the camera.
Very nice.
But just like as an entity, right? That tricorder set is just so cool looking on the shelf. And then if I wear it around the house or something, and I will never admit to doing that. So the tricorder set's really amazing, and just as a cool Star Trek product, right? It's just amazing. And
mine's on the shelf right over here.
Like having gone through all the sausage making to make that thing happen, for it to actually come together the way we wanted it to, is like, oh wow, we actually made it work. Like, how did that happen? And there were some compromises, of course, but so that one, and then the other one that I'm really super proud of, amongst all the ones that I'm super proud of, which is all of them, I think the Shackleton book is probably the one that I spent the most blood, sweat, and tears into hammering into shape, because there was so much to it, and it just got bigger and bigger and bigger as I worked on it and as the team worked on it. Eventually to where it's like 320 pages or something ridiculous like that. It was just turned into this massive tome, and there was still content that we wanted to put into it that we didn't have room for. But I think those are the 2 products that like I look at them on the shelf, or I pull them down and flip them out, and I'm like, yeah, these are really awesome. But that's not to say that everything else that we've done isn't amazing too, because like and not to rattle them off, but Utopia Planitia was an amazing effort by the team, and Aaron especially.
Very popular book as well.
Yeah, Aaron Pillay. I think Stephanie did some amazing work on those covers. The original series collector's edition is just amazing, like the white and the blue and everything. But so that the Discovery campaign guide I really liked. I think it's I wish more fans liked it or got into it, but I think there's other things going on with Discovery and just the cultural zeitgeist that is frustrating. But like the books look great, and there's a lot of great material in there.
To separate the book from the show. People need to separate the book from the show, because I liked the show after I picked up that book.
Right.
So
yeah.
So anyway, I'm rambling, so I'll stop. Michael, what's your favorite STA product to date?
I sad to say now I'm 13 in now that I've worked on, had the privilege of working on, that have been published. I'm going to base it purely off fan reaction and why they say they like something, because that touches my heart more than anything. I really appreciate the Game Masters and Players Guide, how that's been received by fans, where people have used it as a confidence builder to get players who maybe aren't familiar with Star Trek into the universe, or to improve their skills. The ones that I refer to the most myself when I'm running my games are Utopia Planitia and Lower Decks, because we're big into Lower Decks and knowing the inner workings of our ships, and we really enjoy the non-action time. So those books really helped flesh out that world that we don't get to see on TV many times. They don't do that. But based off fan reaction right now, and based off the fear I had as to whether it would be successful or not, and how much sleep I lost over it, the one I'm most proud of right now is Captain's Log, because I'm amazed. It like surfaced this world, like someone turned up the heat, and all the solo RPGers and artists and creatives rose to the top once that book came out. So I'm most shocked by that reaction. I actually didn't think it was going to be as popular as it is. So right now I'm going to ride the Captain's Log wave.
Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah, and that brings me to a question that I was going to ask a little later, but we'll do it now. There's been a lot of changes in RPGs in general of late. There's been a lot of the problems with the OGL stuff, and the other companies all kind of sprouting their own new brands and things like that. There's been a lot of changes coming, especially with COVID and online play and the virtual tabletops and all these other things. Solo play has been one of those things that I know a lot of people have been asking for. People wanted it for Conan. They wanted it for just Modiphious products. They wanted it for Conan. They wanted it for Star Trek. They wanted it for Fallout and so many other games. And I see it on a lot of Reddit posts and things like that. For every game out there, people are begging for solo play games. So what trends are you seeing that are going on in the hobby right now that you find most interesting in the direction that the hobby might be going in the future?
I think the biggest,
it's kind of a hard question.
Well, I think the biggest one is probably virtual tabletops, glass tables, that kind of stuff. That like the increase in technology, and I think overall that's probably going to be for the better. I think there's a challenge though, and I think we've seen this in the last 5 to 10 years maybe, where you got the people with the Twitch channels and the YouTubes and they're doing these productions, right? And they're playing the game, but like some of the groups out there, the production values are so high, like so incredibly high, because they've got the fancy layouts and and speaking specifically for Star Trek, like they're in uniforms, they got the whole layout, and it's really really intimidating to look at that and go, well, gosh. They've set the bar so high that if me and my group across the world want to get together and play the game, like that's what we need. Is that what we need to aspire to? Because otherwise we're not going to get any viewers or anything. And I think you have to think, like as a group, you have to think about like, why are you doing this? Are you doing it because you want to just play the game and then just happen to share it with people? Or are you actually making a production and you are, expecting to make, money off Patreon or whatever you're doing? Like, I don't know. I don't get into that kind of stuff, but, so I think there's a real challenge there with, virtual tabletops and just the whole production level of like Twitches and whatnot, is that you have to, or not you, but we collectively have to figure out a way to still make it accessible so that people don't feel intimidated. Like some new group says, hey, we want to play, X game, but look at these 10 groups are online doing these super high quality productions with the audio and the sound effects and the music and the, everything. Right. And that could be seen as a bar to entry, whereas, people just want to get together and game. And I've seen the same thing with virtual tabletops, right? Where, some virtual tabletops have so much functionality that you could use built into it, or they're customizable so that you build in your own stuff, right? And it's like for me, when I was running the game online, I was using Roll20 and Discord for audio, right? And like I used like the very bare minimum of Roll20 because that's all I needed, right? I didn't need all the bells and whistles and all the fancy stuff. It was like I just needed enough to get in here with my group, play the game, and we're good to go. But there's other people out there that are like doing whole overlays and maps and tokens and just that like they are, they have the time and the ability to put even more effort into it, which is great. But again, that just presents a challenge because like, if you got one group over here doing their thing and they're like, oh, well, we'd really like to do a little bit more, but we just don't have the time or the ability. Then you got another group doing like all the bells and whistles and all the stuff. And it's just hard to find that happy medium. And I think that's just one of the big challenges right now. Michael, what are your thoughts?
No, you're right. In fact, I've caught myself having to encourage people to push through that,
Yes.
because someone just recently on continuing missions, they commented on an article because there's this wealth of captain's logs, solo RPG play reports, both in video format, audio dramas, screenplays that are coming out now and are dropping. And someone said, yeah, I don't think I'll ever be this good. I probably will never play it. And I contacted them personally. I was like, don't do that. I went, don't do that. I said, not everyone, there's like 0.01% of people who have time to do what you're seeing here. And we're giving you options. And I said, this is a creative game. And I told them, just like if you're learning to play the guitar, you do an hour a day, you're going to get better eventually. RPGs the same way. Just jump in and have fun with your friends. I play a tabletop game too, which is very, basic, very 1987 with my crew. And I love that too. There's a joy to that you can't capture electronically on Roll20. I can't get up and improv online, the same way. So I think the trends I'm seeing is a burst in creativity. And what I mean by that is, even at my tabletop game, I have someone who has a 3D printer. I have another person who's excellent with graphic design, and they're starting to bring stuff to the game like minis and maps. And so the trend I'm seeing is that technology and tools are making it so that before, back in the 80s or 90s, if you want to have tokens and stuff and 3D stuff, you relied totally on the manufacturer, and then they could put you over a table and charge whatever they want. And then you had to take the time painting them and all this other stuff. So that was very inaccessible. Whereas now I'm looking at all these technology and tools and resources. For instance, I have my laptop up when I'm playing with all the Star Trek sound effects, and I hit the buttons to create, environment. I'm finding the trend is people are getting super creative. Everyone's bringing a little something to the table. And I'm seeing I feel like we're in this middle of this huge creative time for RPG, bigger than ever. And so I encourage people, keep shopping around, look what people are doing, and bring into your game what you're able. That won't slow down your game, but keep you pushing through. So I just think we're in a renaissance in a sense of RPG.
Yeah, I think personally what I've been seeing as a store owner and as a person who just maintains a close eye on all this stuff is that one of the trends that we're seeing right now and possibly in the future is that, as Jim and Michael both put, there's so much going on in the production values and there's so much creativity and everything else. It's causing players to not transition as easily from the player position to the game master position. And it's causing for there to be kind of a gap in that. And I think as people who are both creatives and who are people who are intimately involved in the creation of the game, what advice would you give to somebody who wants to learn to run Star Trek Adventures, but is intimidated by all this stuff? I mean, other than just get over it and do it, like what piece of advice would you have that could help push them into understanding that it's not really as hard as they're making it seem?
I have one word just because I experienced it for the first time and it built up my confidence. And there's many like them, but I'm going to say Gen Con. Gen Con to me was such a diverse smattering of people at different levels of gaming. And the fact that you could walk in and watch and observe and play. There were people I know that were playing the game for the first time, and then they said, oh, I could do this. So I think experience and jumping in a physical learning environment. Gen Con is actually a learning environment. It's a gaming environment, but I trust you. It's a learning environment, which makes it even more exciting. So going to a convention and watching, and the table I was running for the first time, I never ran a table at a convention before. They were so forgiving, the players. And that's confidence building. I was thinking, man, if this was my first time running this game, everybody was like, oh, by the way, there's this rule. Oh, isn't it this also? I was like, yeah, you're right. And I'm an experienced game master.
Right.
And so I just thought that learning environment was so confidence building that wanting everyone to succeed and have fun was nice. So that's my thing. Is find an environment, go to a gaming shop, maybe ask the game shop owner, like, hey, can I run this? Do you have a couple people who play with me and I want to figure out the rules? I think that would be a really good option.
Yeah.
Jim? I think my advice for new game masters would be to grab one of the quick starts and start small. Right. Don't worry about the bells and whistles. Don't worry about how you're going to present this online or whatever. Just find your group, do a session 0, start small, and start. And I mean, specifically with Star Trek Adventures, start with the basics and then build in the mechanics as you go, as your group is comfortable with it. Add in momentum, add in threat, add in extended tasks, et cetera, et cetera. Start with the basic task resolution and then grow from there, and focus in on the role playing in the story, and going scene to scene to scene, because the game is really built to emulate an episode of Star Trek, right? So just go scene to scene and just take your time with it, and give players the chance to get into it. Don't feel like you need to learn the entire rule set all in one go for the first episode, because you're probably not going to need the vast majority of the stuff that's in there right away. Just add it to taste. So that's my first piece of advice. The second is have fun with it, right? Remember, it's a game. Like, you're not like, the moment you share it online, you're going to get judged, and that's just the nature of life, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, the instant you do anything creative and you start sharing it with people, you're going to get your critics and your naysayers. You'll get people that are supportive, certainly, but like, the instant you share something, no doubt someone's going to say, "Oh, why doesn't it have this? And you got this rule wrong, and you did this wrong, and blah blah blah." And it's like, well, F that, because
right.
Then people say, well, then why am I even doing this if all people are going to do is criticize it? We're just, my group is here to have fun, so we're just not going to share it online anymore. And then that group disappears from the zeitgeist, and then, like, I'm sure there's plenty of groups out there that are happily playing. They just don't want to share online for any number of reasons, right? So yeah, that's my advice to new players and gamers, is just like, start small. Try not to focus on the noise of everybody else doing it differently, or quote unquote better, or with slicker production values or whatever, because like, they're in a different place and they've done things differently, and that's fine. Maybe you could grow into that if that's something you and your group want to do, or maybe you're just perfectly content doing the beer and pretzels thing around the table, and you just happen to have a webcam set up recording it, because like, I love that kind of stuff. I've watched plenty of those for Star Trek Adventures over the years, and it's just fun to see them throwing dice and clearly having fun, even if it's in like Polish, right? Like, I found a group that was playing one of the games in Polish. I'm like, I can't understand any of this, but like, clearly they're playing the game. They got the screen and they got the books and they got their snacks and stuff. And it's like, okay, this is a game group I would probably be comfortable in, even with the language barrier, right? So you just find what your group wants to do, and then just have fun with it, and just don't try not to focus on the noise. I know it's hard to do.
No matter how good Matt Mercer's games may be, it'll never be as much fun to watch it as it is to play, no matter how good your game production value is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So what's one myth? Let's get back to this, a quick industry bit here. What's one myth about the industry of RPG creation that you would like to debunk?
That it's well paid.
I don't think anybody thinks it's well paid, but maybe there's some people out there who think that. I don't know.
That you can make a living doing it. Doing it. That's a myth. There you go.
Yeah, unfortunately, and Michael, I know we've talked about this on a couple of our shows, that the creative arts is so undervalued, at least in America, and very rarely are people encouraged to write or do art or do music or whatever. And as a result, society reflects that, right? It is extraordinarily difficult to make a living writing, just for the sake of writing, whether it's RPGs or fiction or any kind of other writing. Like, it can be done, and you have to be you don't have to be very good. You just have to be persistent, and you have to have a little bit of luck, right? I mean, luck is true for everything. But like, Stephen King did not become Stephen King just because he was dicking around and writing a few short stories here and there. Like, he put his nose to the grindstone and worked and worked at it. And that was his job, Nora Roberts. So there's plenty of writers who have made very successful careers out of it. And it is possible, and anybody could do it. You just need to have the work ethic, and then you have the drive to do it. But in the RPG industry in particular, like, you really need to chase the work. Like, if you want to do like a lot of media tie-in stuff, like if you want to work for, Star Trek or Star Wars or some of the other licensed properties. And then if you want to do original stuff, absolutely. This is a golden age for indie RPGs right now. But the challenge is this exact same challenge that fiction writers have right now. Indie fiction writers is like, it's relatively easy to make something. It's relatively easy these days to publish something, right? Like, the barriers to those have become very, very low in terms of like just like creating a thing and then publishing it. The hardest part is marketing and getting it in front of people's eyes, because you're dealing with the behemoths of the industry. You got Paizo and Wizards of the Coast. And if your stuff isn't, mainline fantasy, and you're going to have a really hard time finding an audience. So you're going to end up with a niche. And, even Star Trek, right? Even Star Trek, a multi-billion-dollar global property, the RPG is still a niche, right? And no matter how hard we try to figure out, like, how do we grow it, like, it's still grassroots, right? Like, 7 years, like, over the last 7 years, I feel like we've really kind of hit a point now where we're getting better known and better recognized, right? But it's taken 7 years to get here.
Right.
And you would think that, well, wait, it's Star Trek though. How could you possibly have to have waited 7 years to do that? And so that's just the nature of the specific RPG industry, right? It's like you got D&D and you got Pathfinder and Starfinder. And then I don't know, there's a few other ones just below that. And then you got literally everything else. And we're all competing for the same gamer eyes, gamer dollars, gamer time. And there's, and again, like I said, with the indie industry coming up now, there's so many new games coming out that as a gaming group, like you could play a different game every week, right? And still not have even scratched the surface of all the games that are out there.
To me, it's about creating new markets too. It's like Jim, I know, is at the point now, and I think Modiphious is at the point where it's about getting people who've never heard of Star Trek or people who watch Star Trek but have never played a game before and getting into that niche market to grow the game. And a lot of the products lean in toward that. You know, I tell people if they want to write every day too as a living, most likely what you're going to be writing for a living is not your passion. It's not going to be a sci-fi comic book. So I write, you know, at work all the time, and but it's boring stuff. It's policy, it's training manuals, it's executive speeches. You know, I'm writing, but that's good experience. I'm getting my chops. I'm improving my use of grammar and language and accessible language and stuff like that. So and then I get to do the fun stuff on the side. So, you know, try if you really want to be a writer, don't limit yourself to I need to write for a comic book. Just find a job writing. There's nowadays, I just can't believe how many communications and marketing people are out there, you know, who are improving their skills using things like Grammarly or even Chat GPT as a tool. So there's opportunities to write, but writing, again, our favorite thing every day, 24/7 is probably not going to happen.
It's and all that stuff. Whether you're writing professionally, it's all practice, right? And I know a lot of writers hate to hear that word. They think practice is a 4-letter word, but like true, it's a skill like anything else. You are not going to improve your writing if you don't keep practicing. So emails, blogs, marketing, you know, business communications, business writing. It's all relevant. It's all, especially for RPG writing, right? Because RPG writing, in a lot of ways, is almost technical writing. Right? So there are certainly fiction elements to it because you're writing sidebars or you're writing, you know, narrative or something. But at the same time, a lot of RPG books are technical documents and they are presenting rules. And those rules, like if you are a really good rules designer, but you're not very good at technical writing and being able to translate that rule into something that a lame person can understand, that's the disconnect. And then you're going to need somebody to help you with that.
Learn your verb noun directives.
Verb
noun directive. You know, it sounds weird, but look it up. But I tell you right now, my technical writing in job aids at work came right into writing new rules for Star Trek Adventures. I was like, I know how the human mind works to get them through, you know? So even how to set the typeface with bold and then regular, you know, just these little things actually do make a difference.
I think it was Neil Gaiman that said you have to write 1 million bad words before you get to the first good ones. So
yeah, absolutely. But yeah, I mean, even Michael, like you were saying, you know, learning how to write process and how to turn that process into a flow chart, right? Like I spent a lot of time working for government contractors, creating requests for proposals, right? And the reviewers inevitably always needed pictures. Like you can tell so much more with a picture than you can with you know 10 paragraphs. And so we had to really work hard to present our information not just narratively in text, but we had to figure out, okay, now we need to turn this into a graphic, like an infographic or just a clear flow chart so they can see at a glance on one slide or one page or whatever, there's the story they want to tell, there's the bottom line. And being able to translate something from a written media into a visual media is an art. Like it is like the ones that are really good at it make a ton of money because they're good at it, but it's hard. And especially for like RPG, right? And this is something that Modiphious is still working through right now is a lot of our earlier books are really, really information dense, right? Just a ton of text that you have to work through. And that's, you know, not necessarily a bad thing, but that's just how traditionally RPGs have been. It's like, you just got to read a ton of text, but especially with the newer generations coming in being so technology focused and fast, they need things faster. We're trying to figure out like, how do we turn all this into flow charts, into tables, into something that's more easily digestible. And I think we started with that a little bit with a couple of the books, especially Captain's Log. I think it really, we started working on those flow charts to make it more visually, you know, comprehensible. And I think we've gotten some pretty good fan feedback that by and large they're working. Although a few fans haven't read them, it's like, well, but the flow chart is there to help you. So it's a balancing act.
I think too, Jeff. Going back to the question about the trends.
Yeah.
Whichever RPG line, I hope Modiphious is the first one. I definitely hope it's Star Trek because we should be the most technologically advanced, right? I'm hoping that at some point, as opposed to maybe depending on print sales, that instead it's a subscription service of how you get content. And in that app and subscription service, you have the functionality that the current generation wants when looking up rules, search functions, remind me how to do this game mechanic, tell me about rhodibium, and it's all in there and people subscribe to the service and then you can add on your player. So there's a game master level and there's a player level. And you want to add a player, add on an extra $1 a month or something. For each player you want to add, almost like a Hulu account, a subscription service, right? And I think whoever gets there first is going to lock people in for life,
right? Because
they have and they get all the content with the subscription.
Right. Yeah. There's certainly a number of platforms that are heading that direction, the D&D Beyond and a few other third-party ones that I can't remember the name of right now. I'm subscribed to 2 or 3 of them. That I know Modiphious is involved in one of them. I can't remember which one it is off the top of my head, but it's one of them. And when I picked up the Avatar Legends RPG, it came with all of the content for one of the platforms. It's not a subscription where you get everything, but it was a subscription where you got the books you subscribe to, and things like virtual tabletops have that as well.
Yeah, I think you should get the basics, and then they're add-ons. Treat it like Netflix, add Hulu. Treat it like add-ons. Like, okay, you want Utopia Planitia? That's an extra $1 a month or something. Access to or whatever. But I think there's a design that would actually be cheaper for the consumer. And it would be more profitable for the publisher in the long term.
On that though, let's go ahead and go the contrary of that. Since we're having a discussion about it, I have all of these books back here. I can play them whenever I want with anybody I want, and the company can't say anything about it, can't do anything about it. They can't change the book on me. What do you say to people who have books like this and want this kind of experience, but now they get RPG as a service? Software as a service has always been a huge problem. Like Microsoft and Adobe and all these companies, people stop using their products because of the software as a service platforms. How do you contend with that kind of thing when you've got people like, especially the older community? Do you offer both, or do you just kind of say, well, this is what it is now and deal with it?
No, I think it's an offer. It's like the choice between PDF and print. It's just a third option. And I think as that generation does get older and people stop collecting books, just real quick, and then have Jim answer it. One reason bookcases like that don't work, for instance, in the San Francisco Bay Area and urban areas, is because people have to move so much because of the cost of rent that they don't want to pack stuff like that anymore. So that's a thing. Right. When people used to have homes, you could have bookshelves. We noticed that I'm in real estate. That's going away now. So the generation's dying off. That was sad to say. So it's preparing for that future. So I think it's offer all, watch the trends, and adapt.
Yeah, I think there have been conversations about this, and we haven't come to a happy conclusion yet, because the RPG industry in general is still very much hidebound to our 8.5 by 11 hardcover, full color, pretty books that we like to have on the shelves. It's been true for decades now, right? We just cannot escape that, even though PDFs can get to the market so much faster because we don't have to wait for distribution. We don't have to wait for printing. I can get a PDF, done and created in 6 months, where an actual hardcover book takes a year plus, right? And production costs are expensive, printing costs are going up, paper is at a premium. Like we had that article recently where Wizards of the Coast said the factories came back to us and said they don't have enough paper for our print run, right? for the new D&D, 1D&D or whatever. And it's like, and then you have to think about that. And you're like, okay, so hey, gaming industry, if the factories are telling D&D that they don't have enough paper to print their stuff, what do you think that means for all the other next tier people that are producing stuff? If they don't have enough paper for D&D, they're not going to have enough paper for everybody else. So like if you're happily playing your niche game, you're not going to be able to see it in print because the big behemoth is taking it all up. Not to disparage Wizards of the Coast, that's just where we are right now. But I would love to see us as an industry move more toward digital editions, digital productions as the primary, and then save the hardcover stuff or the print versions as the exclusive premium fancy edition, and like there isn't like a standard edition hardcover or paperback, or maybe you go with pod and do like a paperback pod if you really want a cheap print version. But I would, if I had my druthers, I would do electronic first, and then every print product you do is a premium, like super fancy, nice cover, nice design, whatever. Because frankly, RPGs by and large are a luxury item, right? They are a premium product and they're not cheap, but you have to look at the, and this is something else we've been talking about internally, which I'm not too sure about, but like the value per dollar that you're putting into an RPG is like ridiculous. Like if you buy a $50, Star Trek Adventures core book or something, and you play it consistently with your group, you're getting thousands of hours of joy out of that $50. And there was nothing else that can compare to that. Maybe a novel, but a movie, you spend $30, you get 2 hours and it's done, right? I mean, I guess you buy the DVD or something, or the Blu-ray, but an RPG, like a good RPG, you could get a lifetime of joy out of that thing for a very, very low cost. And you're talking, pennies for entertainment, right? So that's something to think about.
Well, that's what Wizards of the Coast CEO said recently, that they're under monetizing the brand, right?
Yeah. I hate hearing that though. Right, like
I know, but
like, it always makes me feel wiggy about Star Trek too, because it's like, we're talking about a utopian, near utopian society that's got no money, but at the same time we're selling an RPG, and like, if you want more Star Trek RPG stuff, then you got to buy the stuff that's out there. It's like it's unfortunate, but that's just where we are.
Modiphious is part of the Ferengi Alliance. We've already agreed to that.
Yeah, but every company is, right.
It's a concern too. We
can't afford to do it just for the love. Like we can't just publish stuff for the sake of doing it. I mean, the fans can certainly do that, and that's why Continuing Mission's so successful and got so much content, because you don't have to wait for the licensor to review and approve it, right? And I think that's actually, that harkens back to something we were just talking about. You all were talking about just a few minutes ago about the you wanting to have an online compendium and a subscription service, and the ability to like buy into stuff and buy into books. Like D&D Beyond's got that pretty good, and I think you would, if you want to do something like that and do it well, it would probably need to be a game line that is your original IP, right? I don't think Paramount would ever go for something like that for Star Trek, simply because there's so many layers of red tape to work through, and so many bean counters wanting to make sure that they get their cut of the deal, right? There's just so many layers of stuff that has to go through that.
They do it for STO.
Yeah, do they though? I mean, STO is a different beast.
A lot of that is STO's original content that's layered on top of the Star Trek brand. The Star Trek STO is barely Star Trek anymore. Like it uses the Star Trek skin, but it is so much its own thing now.
Right. I honestly think that there could eventually be a tech. It wouldn't be impossible for STO to adopt RPG and dice rolling into it.
Sure.
I mean, just recently on Continuing Missions, someone posted an audio drama playing Captain's Log that was a branch of their STO game. They even used the STO to animate the characters, but then played an RPG to get the narrative. So I don't think it's that far of a leap. And I think if it was integrated as like an adaptation of, say, STO, then Paramount would be. I mean, there's just so much money with those people paying those STO subscriptions.
Yeah.
You know?
So the challenge, the challenge there, Michael, is that like technologically, it wouldn't be hard to put together, right? The hard part would be convincing the studio executives that it is a viable thing, and that a virtual tabletop or online resource or something isn't a digital video game, right? There's still a disconnect. Not specifically Paramount, but just in general, there's a disconnect between what is a video game versus what is an online tool, right? Because they hear digital, they think video game, right? And so there's a learning curve that has to be overcome, that has to happen from a bunch of different directions, and not just the licensee saying, hey, we want to do this thing. And no, it's not a video game, but it's a tool to help play the game online. There's still a lot of work to be done in that respect.
You're looking for a merge of comicsology with STO landing in the middle. We're paying for these subscriptions.
Yeah. Modiphious has been one of the companies that's on the sort of the front line of being able to get the PDFs in people's hands if they buy the physical copy of the book too. I know that Modiphious will provide the PDF to anyone who sends an email in. You can also, if you buy from a local game store, this is near and dear to me, you buy from a local game store. Some local game stores can be parts of a company called or a program called Bits and Mortar, which my store is. and we can send you the digital copy of the book. So I mean, there are definitely there's currently, we can see that trend happening, but when you're talking this high-minded, the idea of getting into this more subscription-based stuff, how do you combat with something like that, or how do you in the future maintain the growth in the digital era and not alienate the places where people were finding games? Like, how do you, it's so much harder to find players now with the online environment that are reliable, that you can sit down with and that you can really interact with and have that connection to. I mean, you get it somewhat with online, and there's millions of players out there, obviously, but to really get that true connection and not have people just, your games evaporate after 3 or 4 sessions because the players didn't match. The place to do that originally was gaming stores and things like that, and conventions. How do you get into a subscription-based model and still maintain that atmosphere? Or how do you alter to the atmosphere to find that kind of thing? Because you're going to lose, the more you go into subscription-based models, the more you're going to lose the small gaming stores. Like for my store, we're not going to carry Wizards anymore. Like, we're just done carrying Wizards of the Coast after this new one comes out, because there's no point for us carrying it anymore. They are clearly targeting somebody other than us. And I would rather support companies like Modiphious than, Wizards. And don't get me wrong, I still love Wizards of the Coast. I still love D&D. I'm a huge D&D fan, but there's no reason for me to carry that product and put it, and listen to customers come in and tell me that they can get it for half the price on Amazon, or they can get the digital copy over here, or for whatever else. How do you, and because of that, we're losing people who are wanting to discover new games like Star Trek, because they're not coming in to look for the big games anymore. So how do you kind of compete with that idea of keeping new players coming in and still having the subscription model? Or do you think the subscription model would just take over for that?
I think the question you're asking, Jeff, is what every brick and mortar retailer in America is asking. I mean, I'm in San Francisco, and we just closed down our biggest mall in the center financial district. Nordstrom's moved out. Old Navy gone. Like, I was there yesterday in the city, and it was a ghost town on a Friday. And so I think the small ones are, sad to say, the first ones to drop, the small brick and mortars, which is again why I think we're in a time of innovation, and we've got to figure out what we're going to do to keep these games alive. I don't think there's any stopping that truck, in my opinion.
No, but in the same vein though, if that's where players are discovering these things, how do you attract? Where's the new shift? Where's the new paradigm for finding new players?
I think Twitch and stuff like that, like online forums where people can talk to creators, is going to have to be the answer. It's kind of like, say the Amazon model. There's not a product on Amazon that you can't find some sort of YouTube or Twitter or TikTok expert promoting and reaching out. I think that's where we're at right now. We don't know the answer, but someone's going to innovate. I want to be an innovator. I'm trying to figure it out. I'm hoping Modiphious can do the same thing,
I almost wonder if this may be a weird analogy to make, but like for a while there, movie theaters were really struggling to bring audience into the theaters, right? Because everybody could just stay home and watch on their TVs at home, because home theaters have gotten so good. But also the timing between a movie being in the theaters versus it coming available on streaming has gotten so small, right? It's only a couple months now. Like if I miss something in first run theaters, I don't care, because I can go watch it on TV in a couple months. Like there's no longer a movie release that's like, oh, I've got to go see that right now in the theaters. Like, it's like, I mean, who cares? It's a movie. I'll go see it in a couple months. There's no zeitgeist rushing me to go see it, other than maybe being spoiled for something. But even then, it's like, okay. But anyway, so I wonder if game stores just need to find new ways to draw in their clientele and their audience. I mean, like we know that like online retailers are going to kill you in discounts and pricing, right? That's just the reality. And it's unfortunate. Like my favorite game store closed because they couldn't compete with Amazon anymore. And they didn't have anything else to offer that would keep people coming in, other than 20-year-old stuff on their shelves that they couldn't move, and they just let it sit there and collect dust, and then it looked terrible. But I think if I had the ability and the time and the money, what I would do is I would open up a game store, and I would put like some decent quality computers in there, and give everybody a chance. If you want to play stream, if you need a place to go that isn't your parents' house or isn't your friend's house or your basement or whatever, and you want to just play games, like here's a headset, here's a keyboard, here's a computer, go log into Twitch, go log into whatever virtual tabletop, whatever, play with your friends here, buy some snacks, buy some drinks, check out some of the other games that are out there that I've got on my shelf. I hate to say, play Magic or whatever, because I try to, you have to be careful like how you're managing it, right? But just I would want to find ways to draw people in, have cool events at my store.
Yeah, I would add two more elements to that.
Yeah.
To the food, I would actually have a cafe style feel, a little wine, a little beer, and I would add one other element to make sure people come regularly. Right next door would be a laundromat. I would own all the washers and dryers, so that the people who come in to do it, it's like, hey, while you're waiting, come play some games. We'll show you, and also we want some food. I would attach a laundromat, something people have to do to bring in new clients constantly.
I parked ours next to two hair places.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, I think I agree. I'm sorry. I really empathize with the local game stores, because they are really truly they are the interface between the game companies making this stuff and the people wanting to play it, and especially for gamers who want to get their hands on stuff and play it. I talked about the game store that I really liked that was local here, Game Parlor. I miss you, Game Parlor, so much. But one of the great things about Game Parlor that they did is they would let you take the shrink wrap off of games and open it up and look at the components and get a feel for the game. And then if you liked it, then you could either just buy it outright, or if you said, oh, you know what, this isn't for me, they had a shrink wrap machine in the back. And you think that was kind of like a minor thing, but then they could re-shrink wrap it and put it back on the shelf. And as long as it was still in saleable condition, somebody else could come and look at it. But that was a service that no other game store in the area offered. They were like, no, you look at the box, and you read the back cover, and you just hope for the best. And that's, if you want to buy it, buy it. But the fact that this game store was like, no, you know what, we have a shrink wrap machine, so go ahead and open it up, look at the components. Especially nowadays, components are such a key element of selling a game, right? You have all these Kickstarters with their super fancy and super detailed components now, because that's where technology is. We can 3D print just about anything, and you can get super detailed on the miniatures and the components and stuff. And it's like, okay, as a gamer, like, I can't see what a game feels like online, right? I can watch videos, I can watch how to play videos all day long, but me, I'm tactile, right? I want to see what the pieces look like, and I want to see what the map looks like, and I want to get a feel for the pieces. And this may be petty, right? But like the tokens that have like that linen feel to them feel good, and like I want to have that game experience that I want to have at the tables. Like I want it to be fun and feel good and stuff. And like if the cards are like that, there's certain kinds of a card fabric that's like really slick, and they just like fly all over the place, and they're just not fun to handle. It's like, I don't want that. I want to know what the game is. Too. Yeah, they feel thin and cheap, right? So like if you're a game store and you have the means to get yourself a shrink wrap machine or something, then consider that. Like you just encourage the gamer to be careful and don't get their sweaty hands on all over all the components or whatever. But just try to just offer something different that they can't get online, and try to show that it's not just the price. You're actually trying to provide a service as well, right? And that's tricky. And
that's one of the things that we do for sure.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so that's one of the things that we do. Yeah, one of the things we do, and I don't want to get too far off of what you're saying, but one of the things that we do also is a lot of companies like Paizo have and D&D for a while had the Venture League, but they have the organized play stuff, and the stores can help run that kind of stuff. And that's one thing we do. We run a lot of games, and we have a games library, much like you would see at Gen Con. In fact, Lee, who is the Gen Con game library guy, helped me set up my library. So that's one thing that we do, and I think that's a great way to do it. And to your point earlier, Jim, you were talking about having the special cover books. That's something else that I personally, as a collector of books, I really like being able to go to my local shops for, and I think it really helps local shops and keeps people interested in those products. Go ahead. What were we going to say? Oh,
actually, it ties right into what you just said, where I think game companies, by and large, could be doing a better job of giving game stores more either exclusive swag or free swag or organized play stuff, exclusive convention adventures, just that you're only going to find it in the stores. We're not going to make them available online, that kind of stuff, to help the retailer plan events and have actual things that the gamer can go and say, oh, well, I'm going to go to Jeff's store to play Star Trek Adventures because this month they've got some cool thing, and I can go get a little tchotchke or a STL file or maybe like a unique adventure that I can't find anywhere else.
And I would love that. I think
I would love to do that.
Yeah, I honestly think like if the hard copies were only available at brick and mortar for 30 days before release or an order online, that would be a great boost.
Yeah.
So that's something that with Disney's Lorcana just came out. The Lorcana was available in small stores prior, like I think 2 weeks prior to the release in big stores. Then Paizo is coming out now with hobby store exclusive covers for the new Pathfinder second edition, or revised. I don't know what they're calling it, but the new version of the Paizo Pathfinder. So that's all stuff that I think if you're adding that to your subscription based model, you've got to. I think that sustains it's a good thought for a sustainable future, for helping people find the game and still be able to have that model. I think it's a very interesting concept, and seeing where the future takes us. I'm excited. As we've said a couple of times, I think we're in that boom time.
Yeah. And I would just study other industries. Like look at what they do with the sneakers, right? They do you get, before you can even get them online, you got to go in store to get the sneaker releases. So I think there's people who are figuring out how to keep the brick and mortar alive. So got to emulate that.
Yeah. I wanted to talk about, I had a whole bunch of other questions. We've missed like maybe 3/4 of my list here, but we're running low on time. So I want to we'll get to the last little bit of things here. One question I like to ask everybody, and we all have our own personal values or belief systems and things like that, whatever they happen to be. How do you, in your writing, how do you feel your values show up in the work that you do, if they do at all? Like, do you, when you're writing, I know, Jim, you also write novels. How much of that is you and how much of that is just you're doing the job?
I
for
think,
everything, for RPGs and everything else. It's a hard question to answer, I think.
No, I don't know if it's hard. I think it's hard to think about, but I think I can't speak for every writer, obviously, but like everything I write, there's me in it, right? Because I've spent my entire life being focused on diversity and inclusion and equity, partly thanks to Star Trek, right? Teamwork, teammanship, all those values that I've learned over the last umpteen years, it all gets into my writing somehow, to where, like, by and large, the stuff that I'm writing, I try to have a diverse cast of characters, main characters, supporting characters, very, very narrative and cinematic feel of writing. But there's pieces of me in everything, right? The good sides and the bad sides, right? Like there's every person's got their dark side, and like I sometimes tap into that to put into my adversaries in my stories, because that they're human, and the human values are in there. I think I may have missed the point of your question, but I think absolutely
that's perfect.
I'm in all my writing because I can't help it, because that's just my writing is a reflection of me and my thought process where I am at that point in time, and it bleeds into the stories.
I think largely it's a poorly worded question. I'll have to figure out how to word it better in the future, but I think you did a good job. Michael, what you got?
Everything, same as Jim. The reason why is because one of my joys is being able to, anything I write, to have a nonviolent solution, and to bring the best out of humanity, where giving people options, like, okay, if you want to do the easy choice, go ahead, pull out your gun, pull out your phaser, whatever you want. But that's the easy choice. And I think we need more practice in this day and age of having self-control and finding other alternatives. Too many people are turning to violent solutions as a reflex reaction. And so I try to design games where people can make diplomacy the reflex reaction instead.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah. I think actually, harkening back to what we were talking about, Star Trek Discovery, I think Star Trek Discovery, especially the first 2 seasons, does an amazing job of showing people having really hard human conversations with each other about stuff. And they just not, they're not ghosting each other. They're not just walking away. They're not just pulling out a phaser. They're actually sitting down and they're having really hard conversations with each other. And I think I would love to see more of that just in the world, because it's necessary, right? It's like, it's easy to walk away from somebody, or it's easy just not to, text them back or call them or whatever, but to have that real conversation, to get that connection is really important. So I'm sorry, Jeff, I think I interrupted you.
No, that's all right. I was just moving on to the next question, so that's a good answer. What's been the most memorable moment of your career so far in gaming?
The day Jim asked me to give him a pitch. I'll never forget that. But nice. I think I should print out the email and put it on my wall, probably.
One of the questions I was going to ask earlier was, have you had the I've made it moment? So this kind of ties in with that a little bit.
No, I did the other. I'll just say real quick. The day I had it was Gen Con. I told Jim, I said, if this is the end of my writing career right here, and if this is it for me, and standing there at the booth and seeing the reaction from the fans, I'm actually satisfied. I'm very content. That was my I made it moment.
Nice,
interesting. Favorite moment of my career, I think somewhere. Gosh, it must have been during the pandemic. Somewhere during the pandemic, because like they made me the project manager at the end of Gen Con 2019, and then I started going full speed into project management and working on the books that we were working on at the time, and then the pandemic hit. And like the whole world changed, right? But I think somewhere in there, when I was starting to transition to becoming project manager, and not so much just the writer and editor, I realized that I was now in a position where I could give a lot of people opportunities to work on the game and to work on Star Trek that they would never get anywhere else, because there's no other Star Trek licensee right now taking submissions from the rank and file fandom, right? If you want to write Star Trek novels, you got to have an agent, you got to get it through the process. There's nobody else right now taking written stuff and turning it into Star Trek stuff. And I realized, wow, this is an awesome, amazing opportunity to lift people up and bring them with me, as opposed to being a gatekeeper. And I've really tried to embrace that. So I think that was a really exciting moment for me when I finally made that transition in my head from I'm a freelance writer and editor to I'm still freelance, but I'm now the project manager in charge of this thing. And I have the ability and the power to bring people in if I want to, and I want to. And so that was a big moment for me, I think. As far as the moment when I felt like I made it, I'm not sure I'm there yet. I've been so busy. I haven't given myself the time to just stop and appreciate what I've done. Like, I've got a very big body of work, and I'm very, very proud of that work, and very humbled that so many people come with me on the ride to do all that work. But I haven't really stopped to go, oh yeah, okay, that was really awesome. I think I am so satisfied right now. Like, I could walk away tomorrow and feel like I've done everything I wanted to do. Even with the project, I got like 50 or 60 Star Trek projects on my plate right now that I'm working on. And I'm excited for all of them, and it's going to be amazing when they all hit the market, right? But like the stuff that we've done in the last 7 years, I'm super, super proud of. And I guess Gen Con 2017, that first year we went, and we were selling the books right off the pallet, in at the little tiny Modiphious booth. That was pretty cool because it gave me a chance to see fans. Not across the screen, and I could actually touch them and react to them and have them sign my books. That was really awesome. And then that kind of continued in 2018 and kind of continued in 2019. And then again, the pandemic hit, and I haven't been back to a convention since then. So it's been a while. It's been a bit of a drought. So I'm hoping if I go back next year, maybe I'll get that feeling again. Part of me, I feel like I feel selfish because I feel like by 15 minutes of fame, I've been stretching out. I found a way to stretch out that 15 minutes into 4 years, and I'm seeing if I can stretch it out a little bit longer. But no, I'm just grateful to be here and to be working on the game and to be in a position where I can give other people like Michael and Al Spader and so many other people an opportunity to do something cool that they love, and to be able to share this passion that we all have for Star Trek to the fans and get the fans involved too. I love that we're able to get the fans on the show. So great question though, Jeff. I wish I had a better answer.
If we're all still doing this next year, maybe we'll all go to Gen Con and do a sit down one.
That would be cool. That would be super cool.
So last Gen Con I went to was 2014. I've been to conventions other than that, but I love Gen Con. It's so much fun. Would you rather have more time or more money? Super quick question.
Time. I have no problem making money. I have no problem making money if I have time.
Yeah, right. What's the best?
Yeah. I was going to elaborate, but there's no need to elaborate. Just I wish I had more time.
Right. What's the best compliment you've ever? The ironic thing about that question is we have to move on from that question. What's the best compliment you've ever received?
I don't have it verbatim, but it was, and this is thanks to Captain's Log. I think somebody posted on one of the social media channels to say, I've been really struggling to find a group to play the game with. I've been really struggling to find any way to get my creative outlet out, because like they wanted to write stories, they wanted to do Star Trek, they wanted to get involved in the property just because they love it so much, and they're like, I just didn't have the right tools to do it. But then you came out with Captain's Log, and it's unlocked everything. I'm now able to tell stories. I'm able to be creative. I can do this without a group. I can do this without my family. I don't need anybody's approval or permission to do it. I can just take this thing and be amazingly creative. I think that was the most touching comment I saw, because it is like they got it. And like we were able to do that for them. We were able to finally create a tool that connected with them in a meaningful way, that they were then able to go off and be incredibly creative. And like I am, like in my professional job, I am passionate about helping people do their thing better, right? Like if I can give them some training or some tips or a job aid or something, that then I see the little light bulb go off in their head, and they can go, oh, I can be X% more effective now because of this little thing. Like that's where I get my joy, is like helping people be better at what they're doing, or helping them unlock something that they're really passionate about, and then they can go off and be creative. That's where I get my satisfaction. And I think that comment, I mean, even after 7 years, that was the best comment, and it just happened, recently.
That's funny. I know exactly. That was on Facebook, and that was going to be my exact response, was that comment, Jim. That one was like, nailed it. I was so happy.
Nice. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I saw that comment the other day. I was thinking that was a very touching thing for that. On the same vein, what insult have you received that you're the most proud of?
Yes. Don't do this. Jim's laughing. I just did it. I did a soapbox episode. I don't know when this is airing, Jeff. I don't know when you
this will be the first week of October.
Okay, so
first week of September.
Okay,
sorry.
So after that, we've already recorded an episode that's showing at the end of September, and I just railed on a soapbox because someone had made a comment about people posting their books that they were receiving on social media. People are just proud to get their books. There's a lot of anticipation, and that was. I wasn't insulted because I actually don't get. I have made people mad because I don't get offended. They get mad because they try to insult me, and I crack up. I have a very dark comedic mind, right? And so I wasn't upset with it, but I definitely did have a reaction to it. And people can watch Continuing Conversations, the September 29th episode, and they'll see exactly what my response. It was too long to go into here.
Sure. Jim?
Geez, what was the question again? So I get it right. What was the
what
comment?
Insult are you the most proud of? What insult have you received that you're the most proud of?
I have to admit, I'm not sure I could remember. I mean, gamers are fickle lot, and they always complain about stuff even before they praise stuff, and that's just the nature of the business, right? As soon as you release a new product, they're like, "Oh, hey, you got a typo on page 30." It's like, did you even read the rest of it? Did you appreciate any of it, or are you just immediately nitpicking it? Like, I don't know. Who cares?
Right.
I care, but I don't care, because like they see the little things. They don't see the thousands of typos that I fixed before we went into production. But that's beside the point. I don't know that I have a favorite insult. Other than to say that in my fiction writing way back in the day, I wrote a Star Trek short story for one of the anthologies, and somebody posted a review on Amazon, and they were going story by story, giving their short, quick reviews of each one.
Right. And
they got to mine, and they said, well, this was a good story, but I'm not sure what the point of it was. And that was the entirety of the review. It's like, okay, thanks for reading it. At least you liked it.
Right.
It's a good story, but I don't know what the point of it was. It's like, okay.
And I did think of one, Jeff. Somebody, an executive at my work once told me, said, I don't like Michael because he's not a yes man. That's the best insult I ever got in my life. I was so happy.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so that's mine.
Nice.
Yeah, I mean, anytime anybody insults me or disparages the game or the products we're doing, it's like, I've accepted that people have their opinions, and sometimes I can tell that those opinions are uninformed, and it's just I just let it go, because it's not worth it to get into it with somebody online, right? So it's like, okay, it worked for you, or it didn't work for you. That's okay. There'll be another product coming down the line, and if you don't like the game, that's okay. Right. There's plenty of other games to go play. So don't darken my doorstep with your angst, because I don't care. I'm moving on to the next one.
Your negativity never helped anybody. So,
right.
All right. You guys do this on every episode of Continuing Conversations, and I really like it. So I want to steal it, and I'm going to take it for the show and just let you guys know that it is now part of this show. What are you most grateful for? What are your gratitudes?
I guess I'll start. That's our normal tradition. So I'm gonna I'm gonna to launch this show for you, Jeff. I'm gonna say thank you to you. My gratitude has to go to you because there would be no continuing conversations without you. You were the one who first invited me on STA Engage, and I know our schedules at that time didn't really mesh to do something regular. So I invited Jim, and that just started happening. But you were so kind as to say, I don't have the time, but I'll still produce you. I'll still get it out there and I'll edit and put it up there. So there is no us without you. So my thank you goes to you.
I still have the passion for it. I just don't have the time.
Mm-hmm. Yep. It goes right back. It goes back to time. My gratitude. I will echo Michael, Jeff, and say I'm grateful to you. I'm grateful for all the hard work that you put into the show behind the scenes that nobody ever sees and nobody ever talks about other than us. We try to talk about it, but I'm sure we don't talk about it nearly enough. All the things that you're doing to make it happen, and so I'm grateful to you for doing this. And I'm also grateful that you're starting this new show and that you actually thought to invite the two of us. Like that's humbling. That you would think so well of us that you'd want us to help you kick off your show, and hopefully we didn't accidentally bury it.
No, I think it's been a good episode.
Yeah, but grateful to you for everything that you do, and I hope this new show is a big success. And I'm excited for you for this new endeavor, and just looking forward to seeing where it goes from here.
My gratitude, I was going to do something less cheesy, but I will go and do that. My gratitude is really for both of you guys. Without you guys, the Continuing Conversations wouldn't still be on the podcast. The Studio Tempo wouldn't be where it is. I wouldn't have the enjoyment. I really enjoyed editing episode 90 and 96. So those of you who want to go back and watch really well done episodes, as far as the graphics and everything else goes, go back and watch those two. I don't think 96 is out yet, but 90 and 96 look very similar. So go check those out. And I'm grateful that you guys came on the show and that you've taken the baton of STA Engage and ran with it and made it such a popular thing and such an exciting thing that I get to still be a part of. And, not just walking away from me, because you probably could if you really wanted to. And I'm grateful for all of that. So
it's a family, Studio Tempo family.
That's right. So last question is, where can listeners find you? Or watchers, really?
Well, I think Continuing Conversations, go find that podcast, go find that YouTube channel, go to Studio Tempo. All the videos are on there. You can find me on every social media for Star Trek Adventures, as far as I know, the Facebook groups, the Reddit, the Discord, Twitter, or X, I guess, whatever you call it. I'm at scribe_Nettie. I'm on the official Modiphious forums, although hardly anybody goes there anymore because we're on Discord. So if you want to learn more about Star Trek Adventures, you'll find me one way or the other.
Everything Jim said, and you can type in my name to LinkedIn, or you can go to Continuing Conversations, Continuing Missions, which is of course the #1 blog for Star Trek Adventures and Captain's Log.
Yep. Right. And if you want to check out Continuing Conversations or anything else that we do at Studio Tempo, you can find it anywhere at Studio Tempo. That's where I am for everything. There's a link There's a link tree in the stuff below. It'll be in the show notes for the audio podcast. And if you want to listen to the audio only versions, it's anywhere all fine podcasts are given away absolutely free. We're on everything, including you can tell your smart speakers to play Continuing Conversations, and it is on there. So that's one thing I'm most proud of. But with that, I don't have anything else. You guys want to have anything else before we go, or?
IDSC.
Right. No, live long and prosper. Be safe, be well. Thanks for being here.
All right. So long, and thanks for all the fish.